At some point, somebody in the Kenyatta government, presumably the president himself, would have made this calculation. What would be worse? A piece of political theater, televised, devised to put the legitimacy of the government in question? Or denying the media the right to broadcast the ersatz event?
Viewers countrywide were thrown into the dark.
The signal that sends, the perception it creates.
It might have seemed like a good idea in the short term as a show of force, but what it does in the long term is it says we are going to undermine the public's right to information for the sake of securing this short-term power. And that's a real threat to democracy. And I think if they hadn't given it as much attention as they did, it would have just been a footnote in the political history of the country.
The first thing is it tells us that the government itself does not feel that it is bound by the Constitution and by our laws. What's really significant here is that our media, from when the Kenyatta government came in, have pretty much behaved like this government can be their friend. They thought that would buy them some protection. And what they are now learning is that all they have done is to embolden the state.
Kenya's presidential election should have been settled 5 months ago, August 8, 2017. The incumbent, Uhuru Kenyatta, was declared the winner by 10 points over Raila Odinga. Odinga challenged the result in court, saying the Electoral Commission's computers had been hacked, the results tampered with. The Supreme Court ruled with Odinga, saying that by denying the court access to its IT system, the commission left the judges with no choice. They nullified the election results and ordered another vote for October. The second round played out like a farce. Odinga pulled out, saying the fix was in. A key member of the Electoral Commission fled the country, citing political interference and death threats. Voter turnout was less than half of what it was in round one, and the Electoral Commission declared Kenyatta the winner with more than 98% of the vote.
In most civilized countries, when the Electoral Commission gives the result, that is the result, and everybody accepts it, and the country moves on. In Kenya, we have a very, very different society because there's been suspicion, there's always a question mark. What didn't they tell us? Did they hide something? And I think the media finds itself in that space.
Most notably, after the election of late 2007, the results were disputed, and the violence lasted for months. More than 1,000 were killed, more than 500,000 displaced, refugees of an electoral aftermath. The causes of that violence were many and complex. However, the Kenyan media got much of the blame. During the campaign, television stations had aired incendiary political ads in breach of their own regulations. Small local radio stations then incited the post-election violence by broadcasting hate speech. Stung by that criticism, many Kenyan news outlets changed their ways, toned down their content, and started playing it safe.
It's absolutely untrue that we are the ones who caused this problem. Post-election violence had a whole set of other causal issues. But that's, to me, is the moment in which the media started to take a step back from directly criticizing the state, the politicians, and giving up this space. I call it the "we want peace" narrative.
So between 2007 and 2013, the media was in this space where they were thinking, okay, how do we do the next general election without being blamed? And so the media was then criticized in 2013, and I think rightly so, for having been too careful.
That vote in 2013 was the first to elect President Kenyatta. By year's end, his government had passed a new media law, giving itself the power to fine news outlets, a law those outlets opposed and one the US-based Committee to Protect Journalists described as draconian. The Kenyan media might have seen that law coming. Earlier that year, on the 100th day of his presidency, Kenyatta summoned media owners and their executives to a breakfast meeting.
The government will allow journalists from media houses be embedded to State House, apart from opening the government to scrutiny by the media.
As one of the president's allies in the media puts it, Kenyatta simply spelled out the role he expected journalists to play.
So what the president was asking on that occasion is that we should not be adversarial, even as you are the public watchdog, even as you set the agenda. The agenda should not be adversarial, meaning the media should not make itself as an opposition party. It should play the role of being fourth estate. That is the message that the president was trying to get out, because the media in Kenya has always played the role of an opposition party.
President Uhuru Kenyatta earlier today sought to write a new chapter in government relations with the media.
So it's fine, he can call them in, they can have tea, he can articulate what his agenda is, but then the media has to be able to take a step back and critique what the president is saying, and that never happened. At the time that the media was called in, the government was engaged in what it called an anti-terror operation in Garissa, which is to the northeast, where it had rounded up upwards of 500 people. It was just picking up people off the street. They were suspected terrorists, Not a single person in the media took the opportunity during that breakfast to ask about that operation.
From this media breakfast with the state, what they did was they escalated the "we want peace" narrative. You're the media, you're not a PR agency. You're the media. Your job is to keep their feet in the fire, to keep them honest. That's the whole concept of a fourth estate, that keeps people honest. And when they decide to go in bed with the executive and become an extension of the executive, if you think about it as a table, it's a table with 3 legs. How is it supposed to stand?
This story comes down to questions of legitimacy. The Kenyatta government had its legitimacy challenged by Raila Odinga in the most public of ways. The media tried to broadcast that ceremony, perhaps hoping to regain the legitimacy they squandered last year, falling short as election watchdogs and going soft on the Kenyatta government. If the Kenyan media thought that would land them in the government's good graces, then what happened last week proved they made a big mistake. And going to black the way they did will have come as a rude awakening.
It hasn't been seen in this country where all the major television stations are shut down because of a story, not that they covered, but that they were going to cover. This is one of the most vibrant media spaces on the continent, and I really do hope that this was a bad dream. It's going to go away. We are going to wake up to the usual vibrant media, professional media that we've known Kenya to have.
The shutdown was just some sort of wake-up call. Even then, this is an opportunity that they should be grateful for forever. They have got a wake-up call.